IVM.
कृपया ध्यान दीजिए, the language used on the podcast may not be fit for consumption. We warn you, tread carefully. But listen yaar, don't be so conservative. Have to apologize for the delay for those who are listening to this live. I know it's just a handful of you, but this is really a very dangerous situation, a medical emergency. What happened is that I woke up this morning and experienced the male period. Now, at the age of 50, these things happen. I've done the research. I've checked the species. It does happen to lots of males in many animals, from the crow all the way down to the cat and some human beings as well. The bed sheets, and I apologize to women listening especially, the bed sheets were stained. And the male period is such that we're not quite sure where the blood comes from, but we start leaking. I examined the evidence, so it had to be me because there was nobody else on the bed. The wife had already left for a run about 2 hours ago. She basically wakes up at 3 in the morning, shaves for an hour, and then off she goes running for 3 hours. It's a professional job for her. In the meantime, I checked. There were blood stains. I also had blood stains in Jaipur, so this was not the first time, but the first time in Bombay. And then I had to examine where it was coming from, and I still haven't figured it out. I first examined the front area, then the back area and all this, but I wasn't able to understand exactly what's happening. It's a very dangerous precedent. I have to figure out what's going on. And before I go to a doctor or my mom who will give me 5 white homeopathy pills, I'm just putting it out there that that's half the reason why we've had this slight delay in the show today in terms of starting. The other delay is a little technical problem. Our great guest, Remo, is unfortunately far away and he's just trying to get on, but there's some issue with the phone not working or the Wi-Fi not hanging, or, I'm not able to understand all these things, so I can't even explain it to you. Suffice to say, it's like being someone in the airlines. All I can say is technical difficulty, so hang in there.
Have you ever wondered where the business world is headed? How the ways in which we create, market, and sell to consumers will evolve? Or if we'll ever go back to wearing pants while working? For answers to all of this and more, tune into Advertising is Dead with me, Varun Dugirala. Every Tuesday, as I talk to entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers from across business, media, marketing, and beyond. You can catch all episodes of Advertising is Dead on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from.
In the meantime, I've got some AMAs here, which I'm going to start with, and hopefully Remo will. Oh, can you believe it? Remo has joined us, and all is good with the world. Remo Fernandez, the one and only. But you're like Elvis. We don't need the Fernandez. You just say Remo. I mean, that's it. Everybody knows who Remo is. There's nobody. If there's anyone who doesn't know who Remo is, I will have them shot or thrown out of the country. So don't worry. I'm so sorry about putting you through all that technical glitches and all that for the last 15 minutes. I try to tell the team.
I don't know who put whom through.
Yeah. This is a horrible world we live in.
It's great talking to you again, Cyrus. It's been years, man.
It's been years. I've had about 3 wives and 9 kids in the meantime, and you're just sailing from one fabulous highlight to another.
My sympathies.
Thank you. Well, your music gets us through it. That's one good thing. Lots to talk about. The autobiography of Remo Fernandez. First, I just want to highlight for those who came in late to the show. Remo is arguably one of the greatest musicians we've produced, and the body of work goes back so many years. I say arguably only because of the nature of the government, and sometimes they might think that we are too westernized. So Remo had to put that in just to make sure, because you don't sing in Sanskrit. I wish you did sometimes, just for safety. Yeah,
I know.
I think you're walking off because I said government. Remo's politicians are too old to rock and roll. Come back. We're just putting it out there. One of our greats. You're really a national treasure, and for me, it's a great honor knowing you, being associated with you, and having actually spent time with you. I don't know if you'll remember Jalwa and things like that, but I'll come to all that. I want to start with the book first and foremost.
How could I forget?
Yeah,
the good old days of the beginning of private television in India, and all those lovely programs.
Yeah, it was adult erotica. That was the idea that we were trying to push out there at MTV, but I don't know if you remember the grind.
And you were the first guy on TV, I think, who made the whole country laugh and laugh and laugh.
Yeah, that's with clothes. Yeah, I apologize. But so I'm saying with clothes those days. Can you imagine?
Yes, with clothes.
No, but I just wanted to just sound out everybody, because Remo, it's difficult to describe you or pigeonhole you. I mean, your music is your music, you're you. You're such an individualistic personality, just looking at everything you've done in the way you've lived your life. I mean, honestly, for me, these are the great people of the world. I just love the way your attitude, and not just your talent, which is obvious, and you can Google it at any point, but the fact that you've just trailblazed, done your own thing. And we'll go through as much as we can, because maybe that's a part of being this artist that you are. The fact that nothing can hold you and you just do your own thing. Maybe you haven't even reflected unexpected. So this is a psychiatric couch sort of situation where we get Remo to open up and tell us about how Remo the man, not just Remo the musician, evolved in a sense. So the autobiography of Remo Fernandez, that's what it's called. Lots of stuff that you accomplished, but we'll go as much as we can. I mean, it's so much to talk about. I'll try and get to as much as I can. I've actually sat and marked it down. I'd never do homework, Remo, only for you, because it's really in
But
detail here.
thank you. I'm flattered. Really, really flattered.
We have only 1 hour apparently, so I have to try and get as much as I can.
I know.
Let's go right to the beginning. Right in the beginning, the first chapter about growing up in Goa Portuguese. That's a very important point that you seem to have made in the book. The Portuguese connect. Now that we have all these wonderful people in our country who are always checking our nationalism or patriotism or Indianness, etc., etc. But many Goans, I'm half Goan, are very proud of the Portuguese heritage. I mean, it's very much there, and there's no way you can deny it. So just take us a little bit through that right at the beginning.
See, I'm not proud of my Portuguese heritage. It was there. That's it. I could not help it. So it was.
I'm
there's
proud.
nothing to be proud about being colonized,
Yeah.
about being colonized, and about being subjugated by a foreign power during four centuries and a half. There's nothing to be proud about it. But together with subjugation, they also bring their culture, their music, their cuisine, their way of thought. And so you can't help being exposed to what they bring, So the reason why I stress on the fact that Goa was Portuguese and that I grew up that Goa was to explain all that, the kind of situation that I grew up in.
Yeah, slapped me on the face for supporting Portugal, but at least in football we do. Do you support Portugal in football? I have a lot of my Goan friends like to. Does that happen? It's not Portugal versus India. It's not a debit test. It's Portugal in Euro Cup.
Yes, exactly. At least in Portugal, at least in football, there is no conflict between Portugal and India. So I can
not for 100 years.
Yes, so I can take some time. Back Portugal as far as football is concerned.
To crack that. But no, just going back a bit. So we've got that background. Then we come to the chapter on your sister and war, which I think sets the pace a little bit. You want to just get into that for a second?
Yes, the war was this mysterious thing. See, I was an 8-year-old at that time. So I was writing through the eyes and ears of an 8-year-old, and all that I would hear is guerra, guerra, guerra. Guerra means war in Portuguese. And there was going to be this war, and nobody could speak about it openly because the Portuguese were under a dictator. Salazar was a terrible dictator, and he had a secret police service called PIDE, P-I-D-E. I don't know what it stands for, but they used to incriminate and imprison and torture people left, whenever they wanted to. In Portugal, it was terrible. In Goa, it didn't become as bad, I guess. But so nobody could even talk about the fact that India was going to liberate Goa. Everybody had to act as if nothing was happening. And but at the back of our minds, we knew that there was going to be war, guerra. And suddenly, my father came back from work one day and said, I hear that they're coming tomorrow. So let's pack up and let's go to grandmother's house in the village because Panjim might be bombed. There might be fighting in the streets and bombing. So let's just go. So all of us packed up and we left. And the next day in the distance, we could hear explosions, bombs exploding. So we were wondering what was happening. I was hoping that my school had been bombed, but eventually it wasn't. Then we got back to Panjim. I loved my school. I loved that school.
Everybody loves the school once it's over. Yeah.
No, I love my school, but it's every school kid's fantasy, that
absolutely,
holidays, however much we love your school. But so then we came to know that the explosions were just the Portuguese army or whatever was left of it in Goa exploding and blowing up the bridges behind them because they were running away from the Indian army that was so numerous and so strong and powerful. And they were just blowing away the bridges in order not to get caught. And, so there was no fighting. There was no fighting at all. The Portuguese army surrendered immediately. And so
it's amazing, Remo, that for the modern person or the modern Indian, there's not so much research or not so much light shown on this whole employment of Portugal in a sense, where they sort of they turned tail and ran at the end, but it's not something that's highlighted so much. And I'm amazed why not, because Goa is such a rich part of India in terms of heritage, culture. Everybody loves Goa, whether it's just for holiday or food or just the Goan spirit, I dare say. But yet that bit doesn't get highlighted. So it's very interesting that you brought it up because I myself forgot, about this whole. It was back in 62 or 60 something, and it's
61.
61 is just a memory for most people. Even for those
Yeah,
generations, I've just moved on. So it's good that, in a
exactly.
sense that you've thrown light on it.
I've thrown light on it through the eyes of an 8-year-old, like I told you, not as an authority in history and whatever happened, just what I remember as a kid.
Yeah, but you're an 8-year-old then. I'm an 8-year-old now. So you can see the difference, Remo. That's not good. Um, Another thing I love about Remo and Goa, I'll speak to you in third person from time to time. Arnab Goswami has taught me that gift. Remo and Goa, you carry it. You carry it like a badge. Just going back to the 90s, to your feature film songs, the big hits, to the videos, the albums, the MTV sort of albums and all that came out, the events that you used to do and all that. I remember the Pepsi ad, but it's always Remo carries that. There's some people who do that. It's like they would speak of the cricketer Andrew Flintoff or Ian Botham holding England, on the back of their shirt wherever they go. This is Englandness is part of who they are. So I think that
Who they are.
that's don't you think that symbolizes you in a sense? I don't think you ever did it with an intent to do that, but it's just you wore it. You wore this "I'm Goa" and you sort of made Goa proud with
Yes,
your achievements.
exactly. It's part of me. It's part of me, and there's no way that I can erase it, and I don't want to erase it. Like I said, I'm neither proud nor ashamed of it. It's just part of me, But I also know that at that time, there were Goans who were almost ashamed to be Goans, and they would
Correct.
change. They would anglicize. They would anglicize their surnames, even their names, and they hardly spoke about Goa. But I guess most of them were settled in Bombay or Delhi anyway. But I was coming from Goa and I saw nothing to be ashamed about Goa. My God, I loved Goa and I love Goa. I love the Goa that used to be more than the Goa that is now. But I love Goa. And I never saw any reason to.
I think that's fantastic that you held the badge up for everyone, the flag. And also,
Thank you.
let's face it, the Goans are a superior race. And, let's just face it and end the matter now. And go on and on.
That's what they think. That's what they think.
Why
That's
we
what
always
they
the most,
think. That's
why
something
we,
that Goans.
Remo, why are we the most pleasant people in the world? We are. How many irritating Goans do you know? I mean, irritating in the sense of how I'm irritating, but not really. No Goan is going to cause a disruption in the world's harmony. I can tell you that right now. Let's go on. This is your story. I don't want to talk
Well, I
philosophy.
can see that you don't live. I can see that you don't live in Goa, Cyrus. You come to go on holiday. We are a wonderful people to holiday with. Try
That's
living
true.
here. Try living here.
Is it? But then it's no longer a Goan story. That's a Desi connect because everybody, all the Indians abroad love India here, but they don't come here. From abroad, it looks lovely and everything's
Yeah.
great, and you miss home and you sing Kishore Kumar songs
Exactly.
and things like that. Yeah, it all changes. Let's get back. What is this bit about the Billy Rangers to the Beat 4? Because now we're getting into the music, and there's a
Yeah.
chapter called Billy Rangers to the Beat 4. Let's just.
Yes.
When did obviously it was in your blood, you mentioned that and all that, but when did you sort of understand that this is something which I'm going to do more than just the average guy who's great and just talented with music? When did you know that it was going to be more open doors for you and do more?
See, I was 5 when I first went to when I first went on stage, and that was before the Billy Rangers. And before I was 5, I used to make my parents sit in the living room and part the curtains, enter the living room, and they had to clap, and I would bow and I would sing a song, and they had to clap again,
Super.
and I would walk away. So it was like I don't know. It was always part of me to be a show off, to be a performer, and I loved doing that. And a lot of kids sang and played instruments in Goa, but I somehow always saw myself as this guy who sang and played, of course, but that kind of took center stage. But it was second to the fact that I wanted to be a cowboy. My greatest ambition in life was to be a cowboy.
I also wanted
But
to be
how
a
could an
cowboy.
Indian? No.
Yeah. I used to walk, I had a cowboy walk and everything, and it all worked out except no
Yeah.
guns. Yeah.
I had guns and everything. Of course, they didn't shoot. You'll see
Wow.
photos of me dressed up as a cowboy in the book if you turn the pages. And before I wanted to be a cowboy, I wanted to be a taxi driver because I wanted to drive. I wanted to drive a car.
Now you're on your own.
But,
Now you're on
and a
your
taxi-
own.
and a taxi driver could drive a car all day long. But then I wanted to be a cowboy. I wanted a horse. I wanted to go to school on my horse and tie him to the cycle rack. And he would be so happy when he saw me after school. That's one dream that never came true.
Remo, that actually has happened in Kerala with the rise in diesel and gas prices. As this kid whose father, like a 10-year-old kid, who took him on the horse, finally said enough is enough. It was like a symbolic statement. But imagine this piece of satire was actually in your heart many, many years ago from a different perspective, of course.
Yeah.
All right. So let's just dive in a little bit into Billy Rangers.
Yes. Billy Rangers actually started off as, my grandfather was a very strict man who did not allow musical instruments in the house. So my father, who had a tendency for music, never could get into music. So he learned how to play the guitar, the violin, the this, the that at friends and at cousins' houses. So when I showed an inclination towards music, he encouraged me like crazy. So whatever encouragement he did not get, he gave me. So my first group, in fact, he formed for me. I was much too young for that. He would drive around Panjim, pick up kids who played, bring them over for a rehearsal. My mother would make high tea for everybody, and we would rehearse. So I was the leader of the group by name, but he's the one who formed all that. Used to teach us our songs and stuff like that. And then, of course, eventually, when I grew up, I took over, and I had my own. So all I knew is I wanted to be a cowboy. So my group had to be a group of cowboys. And I wanted to be Billy the Kid because that was my favorite cowboy of the time. He wore all black and he had a black gun belt and
William Bonney.
Yes, William Bonney, exactly.
Have you seen the photographs in circulation? Have you seen the 2 photographs in circulation of him?
Yes. I have seen them finally. Yes.
Yeah.
So the original name of the group was Billy the Kid and his Rangers. And we did one show with that name, with that original name, but then it was too long. So somebody shortened it to Billy Rangers, which didn't make sense, but it was catchy and it stayed. So then we became the Billy Rangers. And then when beat music came out, the Shadows and the Beatles, then I didn't want that kind of group anymore with acoustic guitars. And I wanted the 3 electric guitars and drums set up. So then I formed my own group. I was 13, I think. My father bought us the electric guitars and stuff. And then we changed the name to the Beat 4. So it was a change there. No more cowboys. We wanted to be Beat Boys.
But let's just recap because we can't go back there. Your hero growing up was a man who shot 12 men at the very least with a pistol.
Yes.
Just to be clear, that was your hero growing up. So there's a man who's
But they didn't talk about that in the comics that I was reading. I was only reading the comics. I didn't know the real history of the real Bill Bonney. All I knew is the comics. Comics were in Portuguese. So there were cowboys speaking Portuguese and fighting Red Indians who also answered back in Portuguese.
What a wonderful world.
There were cowboy comics. There were cowboy comics that were made in America but translated in Brazil.
Remo, listen, I used to love Lucky Luke growing up as well. I know I'm a little bit after you, but loved all the cowboy comics and everything. So, you're singing my song, quite frankly, no pun intended.
Yeah.
And I also loved all these guys growing up. John Wes Harden, Wild Bill Hickok, Billy the Kid, Jesse James, you name it. Pat Masterson. Went through all of them. And pretending to be them and all that. But like you said, we didn't understand the fundamental point of being a killer. It was more about the glamour of just being good with a gun. And I suppose the reason the Rangers are attached to that because the Rangers were supposedly, the good guys who would come and save the day, etc. So hence you put together Billy the Kid and the Rangers. So you're good, all good. Okay, let's fast forward a little bit. Again, I don't know where to go now. It's very important that you have this story about Goa boy versus Bombay boy. Now, we always have this rivalry between Bombay and Delhi growing up for me personally. And, it's good fun sometimes, good banter, etc., especially on the sports field. But Goa and Bombay, I personally have not experienced that situation. So tell us a little bit about being a Goa boy at heart and then being a Bombay boy by region.
Well, Goa was like a huge village, compared to Bombay. You guys as in Bombay guys at that time of the same generation were hep. You guys were happening, man. So the Goans who came back from Bombay in April and May, they used to wear these broad belts and tight bell bottoms, and and the chicks were in mini skirts and also bell bottoms, and you could hear them from a mile away on Kalangut Beach. Kalangut Beach was the beach in Goa where people from all the villages around Bardesh would gather. And in the south, it was, of course, Kolva. But there were only Goans, either Goans from Goa or Goans who returned during April and May from Bombay, sometimes from Africa, all the way from Africa and stuff like that. And the Bombay guys always, hey, this bloody, I don't have to tell you how they spoke and everything was so different. And it's just the fact of being big city boys, so they were much more hep. They were exposed to the latest music. But no regrets being a Goan boy like I wrote there because, Goans might have had the Latin culture rather than the English culture, which was more prevalent in Bombay and the rest of India. And the Latin culture might have been more subdued, more thing, but it was lovely also. And
I think more subdued, isn't it quite the opposite? The Latin culture is more gregarious, loud, vibrant, rich, speak your mind.
That is the real Latin culture from Latin America and Spain, but I'm talking about the Latin culture coming from Portugal, which is not as...
it's more subdued. Yet one of your sons of the soil, Ronaldo, is attacking Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola for no reason. There's a man who speaks his mind. And keep in mind, one of your big moments, at least for me growing up in the 90s.
He didn't even attack them, they just happened to keep the bottle in front of him, and he's such a health freak. He pushed it away. That's it. And it happened to be caught on camera. And he being Ronaldo, it made news throughout the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's
Tomorrow
the
you
test.
might push something away from your
I'm just saying that's the test that Remo loves
from
his
your
Portugal
table
as
in
well.
front of the camera. And
You can see him defending the goal here,
no, it's
defending
not.
Cristiano Ronaldo. Fair enough. Fair enough.
It's
Fair
not
enough.
that. I'm not defending Ronaldo. I'm not defending Ronaldo, but it could really happen to anybody. I know how that feels because many times it happens to people, I'm sure something like that might have happened to you in the past. Well, once you're in the public eye, you have to be so careful what you do when you're in public because everything takes on a different meaning.
Remo, for us, it's different. If they put stuff
You're a
for a
Bombay
Bombay boy
boy,
on a podium, you look at any of the Bollywood actors, we pocket it and take it home. I mean, that's the way it is. We have a bag, we put it in, we're gone. There's no judgment about the aerated and sweet versus this and that. It goes in the bag. That's how we work. Now I want
You're smarter. You're smarter than Ronaldo.
I'm just trying to think the first time I saw you on the big stage in a sense and the big canvas. I remember, I think it was the front page of that breaking Bombay Times paper, which had just started and all, was the Pepsi ad,
Oh,
do you recall that? Do you recall that? So now let's just fast forward a little bit. I want to talk about your backpacking and all also, but we'll come back to it after some time. I want to just get the career in as well. So when did Remo suddenly? I mean, that made you a national icon overnight. But before that, when were you pushing the envelope and suddenly you were completely out there? How did that happen? How did Remo go from being just singing in Goa and being known by just a few people to suddenly becoming this iconic personality? Which the transformation happened at maybe in the late 80s, early 90s?
Exactly. Late 80s, early 90s. I kept writing my own songs and releasing my own songs. Record companies were saying no, left, right, and center because I wasn't singing in Hindi. They said English songs won't sell here. And I knew that they were wrong because my songs might have been in English, but they were not wannabe American songs or British songs. They were about the Indian reality, Graham Bell. Or to Graham Bell, about the roads in Goa, about this. I was singing about the Indian reality. And so my albums became popular. And then when Pepsi came into India, they wanted to, and I was already known, of course, as perhaps the top cat in the pop scene, in the pop rock.
You had Jalwa before that, in about 85, 86.
Yes, I already had Jalwa. So I had already branched up. Yeah.
Pack That Smack?
Was that the big one? Pack That Smack was around the time of Pepsi. I don't really remember whether it was just before or just after. But
it predates. I've just gone through it.
I think it was just before Pepsi.
Yeah, just before. Yeah.
I think so. So when Pepsi came to India, it was like I wrote in the book, it's there were no awards for pop music or for rock music, no recognition whatsoever officially in India. So when Pepsi came, it was like, they unofficially, they were saying in America, we chose Michael Jackson to endorse us. He's the greatest pop star in America. In India, we choose you, they told me. So unofficially, it was like receiving an award for my music or for whatever I stood for. So it was a great feeling. And yes, that at the time when Doordarshan was the only channel and there were no music videos anywhere, that 1 minute ad which was made for Pepsi was like a rock video and it just hit.
I mean, Remo, exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Today we are splintered because of the internet and things like that, and people have have their own sort of custom-made viewing.
Exactly.
At that time, this video, every single college, school student, parent, mother, father, sister, uncle saw it. I mean, you're looking 1.3 billion, whatever the hell we were then, we're a little less, but everybody saw it. And I think overnight, Remo, because I remember in college, people using you as a reference. Once that happens, look, we want to have like a Remo like concert here. We want to have like a Remo presence on stage. Once you start hearing that, the person has gone into another level. Yeah, I remember that. I'm talking about Xavier's in the 90s.
Yes.
So Xavier's in the 90s, you were already very well established, and we were using you as a reference call. Just like we would with Milind Soman as the model. These are the names that would come. We got to have like a Remo concert. This would be like a Remo performance. You got to really gel with the audience. Blah blah blah. All that was going on in the background, and so I'm just looking back and thinking and remembering that by then, I'm not saying Pepsi alone. Obviously, there's a lot of things that come together when maybe it's karma or whatever, and then suddenly Remo is out there, and he's no longer just for Goa. Will always be just for Goa as well, but he goes beyond that in leaps and bounds. And then you did agree to do some Hindi songs, as in the Jalwa track, which is your own brand. And I must say, going all the way back, Pyar Bhi Hona Hi Tha, that's much later, of course, in the concept. But I was just trying to remember, I was in Ludhiana doing a concert.
Yeah, that's quite later. That was a few years later.
No, but then they were singing your song. Like, we had 15,000 people in the audience singing every line, And I was just thinking, I mean, this guy comes from Goa. Hindi was not his thing or whatever. And now he's got everybody in the palm of his hand also. So again, in just a few, it's so difficult to ask a stupid question like this, but can you trace for us how that suddenly Remo was just, how did you evolve like that? And suddenly you became really popular, and did you even know what was going
Actually,
on?
there
What
are
sort of
four
happened?
things that happen in around the same year, very close by, and all four of them were instrumental in suddenly catapulting me, like you said, from nowhere into the national limelight. One was the Pepsi film. One was a controversy, in fact, where Rajiv Gandhi came down to Goa. The
Yeah.
Goa government at that time, the Congress government, asked me to sing for him, and they requested me, or they warned me, you might say, not to sing anything that would offend him, because I was known for being outspoken in front of
Yeah.
politicians and
It's here. It's
everybody
here
through
in the
my
book.
songs and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
I said, of course, I will not offend him. Yeah, exactly. And I wrote this song where I invited him down to Goa every year, because then the Congress would repair our roads, and not because I loved him, but because the Congress would do something for us finally. When he came down, and
Hello, Rajiv
that
Gandhi.
made news. Yeah, and then Rajiv Gandhi wrote back. Oh yeah, there was
He
a
loved it.
newspaper editor in Goa who attacked me for it in a local paper, and he was attacking me almost daily in the papers. So I sent the cuttings to Rajiv, never thinking that he might even receive my letter. But 2 weeks later, there was his answer at my doorstep. So the fact that a prime minister had written to a rock musician at that time, especially when rock musicians were not at all officially
Against the
accepted
Sanskriti and
as
Parampara of
human
India.
beings. So suddenly, his letter was published not only by Goan papers but by national magazines. So that was another, national magazines, national newspapers. Everybody wanted to carry this story of the prime minister writing and approving and enjoying the music of.
I want people to buy the book and read it, so we don't give anything away. But the gist of his words,
Okay.
This is a PM talking to a musician, not something that happens every day.
Yeah.
So the gist.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm saying, can you give us the gist of what Rajiv Gandhi said in the letter? I don't want to give everything away because they should read the book and get everything from it. But just
the letter. Yeah, the letter just said, "Dear Remo," and "Dear Remo" written by hand. I remember that. And then typewritten was Sonia and I both enjoyed your performance very, very much. Don't let a little criticism affect you at all, and stuff like that. And then with best wishes, again written by hand. Rajiv Gandhi, Prime Minister of India. It was a very simple letter, but it was a seal of approval, from the Prime Minister against this guy who was trying to say that I was destroying Goan culture and stuff like that by singing that song "Hello Rajiv Gandhi" to him.
So not bad.
So that
not bad.
So that was the second thing that happened that year. The third thing was there was a concert called Aid Bhopal in Bombay in aid of the victims of the thing.
Bhopal
and
tragedy,
somehow,
gas tragedy, yeah.
Once again, the one and only channel that we have, that is Doordarshan, decided to show that whole concert over 4 consecutive Sundays. And I just went up as a last minute artist. I was not supposed to be there because I had a show in Calcutta. But on the way back from Calcutta, I stopped and I went there as a part of the audience. And somebody, the organizers, found me in that throng in the stadium, and they put a guitar in my hands. And they asked me to please sing a couple of songs. And I sang again, I think Pack That Smack, and I don't remember what. And somehow Doordarshan, although they showed different artists, different bands on those 4 Sundays, someone in Doordarshan decided to show my 2 songs on every Sunday. So that again was, like you said, Doordarshan was the exposure for these millions, strong population that we have and had. So those 4 Sundays at prime time were, amazing.
And what's the 4th thing? Or is that the 4th thing? The Sundays?
No, that was the third one. Yeah. I'm trying to remember what the 4th one was. If it comes, it's in the book.
Viewer, come back and read the book to find the 4th thing. That's the mystery. That's superb. That's superb, Remo. You cannot do it better than that. You pushed it. You left them hanging. Now find number 4. Yeah, screw them. Let them buy the bloody book. The podcast shouldn't reveal everything. And he's not drinking Pepsi. He's drinking water, just to warn everyone. And nothing stronger. It's too early in the morning when we're recording this. Okay, we're going to take a break now and bring Silvery in. Want to talk a little bit more about the book and then do the AMAs as well. But just the legendary Remo Fernandes, for those who are joining us a little late, is here with us. And it's so nice, that you're so laid back and easygoing. I'm just thinking back to my memories with you. I'm sure you won't remember them. But, you're already a big star. And, when it's very important, I think, when you're a young guy, when you're around bigger stars and big people like that, if they treat you nicely, just everything goes well, And if they don't, you've got a chip on your shoulder, and that carries on to the next generation as well. So, got to say, really love the way you live your life.
Of course, I remember you. Of course, I remember those times, Cyrus. I remember them very well. I told these people at HarperCollins, and I just told my companion, Xenia, that God, I'm looking forward to seeing this guy, Cyrus Broacha, because I have such lovely memories of our interviews. I still remember, I think the last one was about my album, India Beyond, and all the things you cracked. So what's it about? Is it about Pakistan? Is that because that's what's beyond India and stuff like that?
Can't do that anymore.
I remember very well. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Well, wow. No, I'm saying can't do that anymore, but thank you so much. We'll get Silvery in immediately. Another generation, of course, but everybody knows who Remo is. Silvery, come in. Show your respect.
Hello, hi Cyrus.
He's the guy.
He's
the guy who's irritating you with the tech in the beginning. Poor fellow.
Yes, sorry.
Hey, Remo,
apologies.
Isn't he very polite? We find him like extra polite.
Very polite.
Is that a good thing?
Very efficient too.
Wow. Need a raise now.
I'm not the one who pays you, so yeah, go ahead. Let's see if you get a letter from the Prime Minister. You'll get your raise immediately. Let's see if we can do that. Yeah. Silvery, can we? I just want to ask him a couple more questions before we do the AMA, because this backpacking is also the way he's lived his life, which is, there's the musician side, and it's almost like the same thing in a way. He's an artist from 0 to 100. You just took off. You traveled to Europe and South Africa. We're going back now in time, Remo. You just took off.
Yeah.
What was your mindset? What happened? What were you looking for? Just if you do have any recall of that.
I had met so many young European and American travelers here in Goa, and I wanted to be an Indian hippie in Europe. Do it the other way
around. About time, yes.
And, I didn't want to be a Goan hippie on a Goan beach. That doesn't mean I wanted to be out there.
Those are Punjabis and Bengalis. Yeah.
No. At that time, there were Goans. There were no Punjabis and Bengalis in Goa at that time. There were Goans and there were foreigners. That's it. And, that kind of life really held such a fascination for me, that the romanticism of working, washing dishes, while you're sightseeing the world, or, picking up grapes during the grape season and stuff like that. And I went ready to do anything, and I didn't know when I was going to come back. And, it's just that fascination and the fact that I was young, the adventurous spirit that exists in all of us. In some of us, it exists all our lives. But nowadays, my adventures are more comfortable and safer than
I know
hitchhiking across the world.
You're being a little modest about it, but why I bring it up also from what little I've read of the book is that, it sort of tells you about who Remo is as a person. There's a certain fearlessness. I think that's in the music as well. There's also you've worked with advertising people and all that, but you can't be pigeonholed. You can't be pushed around. You can see that in the way you've held your own. Ultimately, even when you sang feature songs and you said, okay, I'll do some Bollywood work, it's Remo singing Remo style. There's no way you switched. You did your thing, and in fact, they switched to follow you rather than you switched for them. So I think that all comes from the fact that you've just fearlessly took off without a plan, which I don't know as modern urban Indians. I'm not saying all Indians, modern urban Indians. I don't know if we have the courage to do that. A lot of people talk about it. Silvery, wouldn't you like to do that? But would you do that is the question. Like he said, there was no date.
Yeah, absolutely.
He just went. He just literally went. Right. And who does that anymore? We're so insecure about everything. So I don't know if it's fair to say, but it sums up, I think, your personality in many ways that, you're genial and sweet and all that and great talent, but there's a certain strength of character and you went off. Am I a good psychiatrist, Remo? I'm a good reader of people.
Very, very good. As long as you keep flattering me, you're a fantastic psychiatrist. Yeah.
Oh, I'm here to flatter you. That's my job, sir. You just tip me at the end. Remember.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Paisa Vaisa, Anupam Gupta is joined by Gopal Agrawal, Senior Fund Manager, HDFC AMC Limited. They talk about the latest new fund offer, the HDFC Multi-Cap Fund. On Probation Se Promotion Tak, host Abhinav talks about leadership and how it can be nurtured. On Fin Talks at Bob World, Akhil is in conversation with Mukesh Kaldra. Mukesh is the founder and CEO of ET Money, and they discuss how Indians invest. Join the Simplified Trio as they break down complex causes, effects, politics, and cricketing mishaps caused by the intense air pollution in Delhi. Yeah, you heard that right, cricketing mishaps. And on Edges and Sledges, Ashwin and DJ talk about the first test match between India and New Zealand and the 2022 IPL retentions. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. And finally, do remember that many of our shows are available on YouTube. You can check that out by going to our website, ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, where we have a list of all of our various YouTube channels. Finally, we'd like to thank the sponsors on the network this week: Cred, Bank of Baroda, HDFC Mutual Fund, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Intel, and Oxfam India. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Follow me at Instagram and Twitter on Bored Brocha. I'm so bored, I need your help. I need your love. I need your touch. Okay, just follow me.
Silvery, you want to ask any questions of the legendary Remo?
We have tons of AMAs. For sir.
Okay, let's get into it fast.
All right. Getting into the AMAs. This first one is a great question. Hilarious. Comes from Aryan1717. He says, "Please ask Remo sir if he really said what we think he said in the song Aflatun." I'm referring to the famous TMKC. I'm just gonna play 3 seconds of that part so that we don't get a copyright strike. Bear with me, please.
Teri,
you can hear that.
And then I didn't get the rest.
It is not. First of all, it's not me singing. It's not my voice. You know, I sang the song. I sang the melody, and
Yes, sir.
Samir Dalip Sen, right? They were the music directors. So he had done a scratch recording before I came into the studio. And he's a real joker. And he was trying to scat like me and in the studio just for fun. He said, and by the way, what he said, the Teri ki churi is what he said. A knife is what he said in the
Passed by the
And if you
censors,
listen to it very carefully, you will make out that it's not my voice. It's another voice that is saying almost on top of mine, you know. So it's his voice, and I don't know for what reason in the final mix they decided to keep some of the things that he had sung as well.
Because he made the
that
decision.
only, gave rise to somebody. Sorry.
Because he made the decision. It was his choice.
Yeah. Yes. Of course. They were the music directors. So finally, the final mix is always done by the music directors, not by the singer. Not by the playback singer. The playback singer sings his part and goes off, and the final mix is done much later.
Remo, for the sake of urban legend, can we just preserve it in the way Aryan1717 has asked us the question? It's an urban legend. Remo says this. Years later, people are listening to your songs. And it's like a tick that let it be. I'm saying, why would you give this other guy publicity?
Yes, but it's something that I would never do. It's something that I would. But it's something that I would never do.
It endears you to the younger generation. They love it.
I do. But it's something that I would never do for publicity or for whatever. To sing a bad word and an obscenity in a song, it's something that I would just never want to do.
Hello, there's no obscenity.
I don't want to be associated with something I didn't do and not believe.
It's Teri ki churi. He says, "I can die in peace. Cheers, churi it is." There you go. There's no bad words. Just to clarify,
it is Teri ki churi and it's not sung by me. That's the most important thing I want to stress on. That is not sung by me. Listen to the voice.
So you'll have to share the national award for that one. That's for sure. Okay, next.
All right. Next one comes in from Kashan Shetty. He says, "Hello, Remo sir, lifelong fan. Could you tell us the experience of shooting Trikal? How was it like working with Shyam Benegal, and how did that project come your way?"
These are your fans. They've studied you every
First of all, I was in college when I know. I was in college, and I was not really a great fan of Bollywood masala films. But then suddenly one day I saw this poster that looked very different. There was this village girl on the poster who actually looked like a village girl, and that attracted me to go and watch this film. And I didn't know, coming from Goa, I didn't even know about the existence of so-called art cinema in India. And that was the first so-called art. I hate the name art film, but that was the first art film I saw. And I became a fan of this man called Shyam Benegal. And that was it, He was far away. He was out there in the universe of films and his brilliant films, that too. And then some years later, I was in Paris. I happened to be in Paris with my then wife, Michelle, and in France, in Le Havre. And when I called up my mother, she said, "By the way, there was a call from this gentleman called Shyam Benegal. He wants you to do music for a film." I couldn't believe it, man. I was such a fan of the man. And to know that he had called asking me to do music for a film of his, because it was going to be a film that was going to be shot in Goa, about Goa, and about the Portuguese times in Goa. So that's the reason why he chose me. And but I couldn't believe that somebody of whom I'd been such a fan in college had phoned me, So on the way back from France, I stopped and met him, and it was wonderful meeting him, because people like that are absolutely serious and down to earth. People who are real genuine artists, and who don't need to put on a show, jewelry, fancy clothes. Well, don't look at my earrings now, please. But
Yeah, I did
those
the
are
same.
real. But those are real artists, and it's always a pleasure meeting someone like them. So yeah, that's how the film came about, and it was a fantastic experience, because I think it was the first time that I was shooting for a film. Jalwa happened in the same year. I remember two extremes. One was a commercial extreme of Indian cinema, and one was the art world, so-called.
Yeah, but you had
extreme of
Nasiruddin
Indian
Shah,
cinema.
who was from the parallel cinema fold, so to speak. So in a sense, there was a connect. It was like actors. There were a lot of theatre actors involved in Jalwa as well. So there was a lot of, let's say,
Absolutely.
left cinema being portrayed.
Yeah. In Jalwa also, that was Nasir's first commercial film. And it was such a change from his role in Trikal, because in the meanwhile he had gone to the gym and pumped himself up for the role in Jalwa, and he was a tough cop, and it was his first also.
And the great thing about Nasir is he's almost always angry. So working out was a good fit for a little while, I think.
Kashin has another email. He says, since you both are connected to Jalwa, what's your take on that film after all these years? Has it aged well? Does it deserve a remake? And do you still have a crush on Archana?
Let Remo take it first. Remo,
who is he asking?
Both of us. You can't duck this one. Ronaldo, you can't duck this one. No.
You must have had a crush on Archana.
I was
because if I'm not mistaken, I know, but if I'm not mistaken, she hugged you, a sisterly hug, of course. But you, being a 14-year-old,
I muffed up the lines.
You being a 14-year-old horny guy, you must not have taken that hug in a sisterly or brotherly way at all, I'm sure.
No. She was very attractive. I was 14 years old. Do the maths. What can I do? She was really nice to me also. But I'm just going back to the first part of the question, which is I'm not a big fan of remakes. I think it was a very cult film for its time, and it stood its ground against all these big banners and names. And sadly, Pankaj Parashar didn't really make it big, because I thought he was tremendously talented. Then it showcased people like yourself, Johnny Lever, who went leaps and bounds after that as well. Satish Kaushik, Nasir reinvented himself in a sense. So they did all that. But do you think a remake works at all when you see a film again with different people?
Me personally, I don't like remakes.
There you
go. There are very, very few remakes that I really have really appreciated and liked. I can't think of any right now, but
I can think of only one.
So I think leave a masterpiece alone. Leave a masterpiece alone is what I say. Even in music, when they do remakes of songs and the remixes and new versions, especially when they touch Beatles songs, I hate.
Oh God!
You can't touch.
Yes, at last, Daniel come to justice. They kill the bloody songs. I hate that.
Can't touch perfection. Very, very few people have done justice to a Beatles song. Very few. One of them is, of course, Joe Cocker with
I was going to say the
my
same.
friends.
God!
What
would you say?
Of
course, fantastic. What do you? Fabulous.
Oh my God! At the Woodstock at Eros Cinema during Woodstock, we would just be stuck to our seats and just hear that version. We couldn't believe it.
Silvery, have you heard the Joe Cocker version? It plays in that famous show Wonder Years. It opens it's the opening track throughout the Wonder Years. Have you ever seen that show?
I've never seen the Wonder Years.
Silvery,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Antariksh, what's your first name? Which Cyrus is calling you?
It's Antariksh. My full name is Antariksh Thakkar. Cyrus calls me Silvery.
Yeah.
It's like an inside joke on the podcast now, sir.
Silvery, like the color silver.
Silvery.
Like the color silver.
No, gold silver.
Oh, silvery. I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
I thought there was some...
It's to do with my musician jewelry. It's all the silver I wear. No, it's not.
Oh, I see. I thought there was some hot chick.
It's a Punjabi pet name, Let's put it this way.
Who was going to join us on the show?
He wanted to be named Teri Maa Ki Churi or Silvery. The choices were these two. After what? He was conceived during Aflatun.
I see.
Yeah. People make mistakes.
The Churi could have been a silver knife.
There you go. Yeah. Spot on. Yeah. Okay. Right. Next one.
Next one comes in from Aditya Sharda. He says, Remo sir, what's your take on your songs being remade today? Also, do you think for a remake, the original singer should have the first right of refusal to
So
remake.
let's take the second part. We sort of answered the first part. The original
Yeah,
singer.
exactly,
would-
Yeah, because the first part I think we've already spoken about. I don't really think so, because a singer can misuse it, or the original composer can misuse that right. So, and he might refuse a brilliant remake of the song from being made. So I don't think we should have that right. Neither the singer nor the composer.
But
Let
it
them
goes
make
back-
the remake, and then the public will judge how good the remake is or isn't. Like I said, it could also stop people like Joe Cocker doing a song by the Beatles, and that would have been a shame.
But it also goes back a little bit to the fact that, in the old days, now I think it's more clear today, well, who should own the copyright? Very often, Remo's done everything, but if you're doing something with a record label or doing something with a producer or a film, they own the copyright, even though they've done nothing on it except Terimaki Chaku or whatever that hell line was. So, in that sense, the singer should own the song, right? I mean, when you create the whole content, start to finish, every bloody decibel, every drum beat, everything is yours.
No, it's not mine. In that song, especially, it's not mine. The song was by Dalip and Samir Sen, like I told you. I was only the playback singer. I don't know who wrote the lyrics, but they were the music directors in that film. So the
Okay,
film
so-
songs that I've sung for other directors, I don't really deserve to have any rights whatsoever. I didn't compose them or anything. My own albums, my own songs, yes. Like Jalwa, I composed, Dekho Dekho Ye Hai Jalwa, and I played every instrument, I recorded, I mixed everything at home. So that one, yes, of course, the rights should be with me, but even those rights, not really with me. I mean, Times Music launched their first, their whole record company with their first two albums being called Jalwa 1 and Jalwa 2 or something like that, of which I didn't see a single paisa, but as the
Silvery,
composer,
call
as the
Times
original
now
composer.
on the phone, get them on the phone, marketing media head. I need to talk to him. This is travesty. This cannot happen. This is a man who prime ministers write to motivate him. Small notes, handwritten notes. Have you got from the present prime minister any note, Remo?
No.
Okay,
No,
we'll leave
no,
it there.
from
We'll
him.
leave it.
And why should I? Why should I? There's nothing which connected me to, to
Well-
Rajiv. I had sent the cuttings. I had sent the cuttings to Rajiv, so he owed me a reply. I mean, he replied to my note. That was amazing.
Well, Silvery, Remo's songs are still to be
Against-
sung. There's a lot of petrol left in the tank, so who knows who's going to write to him next? Let's see what mood he's in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
One or two more. if you
Iris Brocha is
sure.
talking to me right now.
can.
That's
Right.
what counts.
Don't say that, then people put it off. Just keep saying your
I
name.
know.
Go on.
All right.
Yes,
Tarun
yes.
Kaushik says, Remo sir, how was it working with A.R. Rahman over time, especially the stage shows? How does such a shy personality transform on stage?
Now, who's the shy personality, Rahman or me? Actually, I was very, very
Uh,
shy as a person. But meeting Rahman again was almost like meeting Sham Benegal. I've been saying that people with real talent who don't need props and who don't need to put on airs and a false persona to prove themselves, who remain simple, but their greatness speaks through their work. Rahman is one of them. Meeting him was, absolutely normal. Absolutely, he was absolutely down to earth. I met him, in fact, backstage in Delhi at a show that I was doing, which was, don't remember what the show was, but it was at one of these huge auditoriums. And backstage, suddenly I see him walking with somebody else, and he comes up to me and says, "Hi, I'm Rahman." I said, "Oh my God, you are Rahman, whose music I love." And he said, "Yes, when I was in college, we had a college band and we used to play Ocean Queen. We used to play your songs." I couldn't believe that. It was such a lovely,
He was a
feeling and
rocker. He began as a
interaction.
rocker.
Sorry?
Remo, he was a rock band. He used to play keyboards and he was playing rock music.
I-
Come and say hi to Remo.
I
The one
believe
and only
so.
Remo. Quick.
Yes.
My wife wants to say hi to you. This is my wife, Aisha.
Who's that?
That's legend. My wife.
I see.
Who's that is a
Hi,
question for me.
Aisha. So nice to meet you.
Saying hi.
How do you put up with this man?
How do you put up with this man?
How do you put up with this man? How many years have you put up with this man for?
She's saying divorce. Thanks a lot, Remo. No, she's saying divorce. Her answer is divorce. So that means I move into your house. Okay? Yeah. And my biography is called Teri
Okay.
Maa Ki.
Anytime.
What is it? Chaku. Churi. Churi. All right. Got distracted by that. Women sometimes making
Okay.
mockery of our show. Can we get one more in?
Sure. This one comes
Great.
from Rahul Chaudhary. Very interesting question. He says, People have so many misconceptions about visiting Goa, so-called myths. Remo sir, if you had to let people know about Goa in a few words, what would it be? What exactly is Goa all about?
In one answer, it's
I
tough.
guess Goa is different things to different
Yeah.
people. The people who visit Goa for rave parties see one kind of Goa. People who visit Goa for alcohol and drugs see another kind of Goa.
Sorpotel.
People who approach who come to Goa to meet Goans and to find out about the real Goa. When I say the real Goa, again, there are so many realities everywhere. We don't have to know that. But to me, Goa is a place I was born in and I grew up in, and that Goa has all but disappeared. It doesn't exist anymore. And I put those feelings and thoughts into a song called "The Goa That I Used to Know." It's on a video on YouTube, and because Goans have changed. Very sadly, Goans have changed from that very honest people that we used to be known as. That very commerce changes everybody. So we don't have to be surprised about that. Friends and acquaintances who used to run shops, for example, the guy from whom I bought all my mobiles ever since they came into existence. Now, the last mobile that I bought, it wasn't such a pleasant experience buying it from him. I felt ripped off in many ways. So, for example, there are things like that. There are stories of brothers cheating brothers out of inheritances. And
damn it, Remo, you're making Goa into Delhi. What are you doing? Stop.
Not me. Not me. I'm sorry to say, not me. It's not me who's doing it, but that's what's happened to Goa. And I'm sure Delhi was a lovely place in the beginning too, when it was small. When
1302.
It's so easy to be honest when there's nothing to rob. You can't help but being honest.
So now that you mention it this way, Remo, any chance that we'll see you in politics? I mean,
no way.
Not even Rajya Sabha?
I've never been. Nothing.
If they nominate you, would you go? If they nominate you, you'll have to go, right? I mean, why would you?
You don't have to go. And in any case, I'm a Portuguese national now, so I couldn't really join politics in India. I've taken Portuguese nationality.
You could if they
some
come
years
back.
ago already.
Yeah.
And I divide my time between Portugal. Sorry.
I'm just kidding. I said you could if they come back. If they were to come back.
Sorry, what did you say?
Oh, just a silly joke. Don't worry, Remo. Carry on.
Oh.
I'm breaking your flow. Yeah.
Okay.
So you spend your time in Goa and Portugal, you were saying.
Yeah, between Goa and Portugal. So even if I wanted to, I couldn't join politics. And I've never wanted to join politics. Never did I join politics. Because there's so much more that you can do, I think, from outside. Because once you join politics, you join a party, then you're blinded by your affiliation to one party. Then you turn blind to that party's misdoings and wrongdoings, and you think it's your duty to defend them. And nowadays, of course, there's another curse. You join a party and you look at which one will be the more lucrative one to jump to and to sell yourself to.
And if you leave the party,
is not at all something that has ever.
Remo, and further point is, if you leave the party, then immediately there's an ED raid on you. That's another thing you would be very careful of. So you can't leave the party also. It's like it's an association for life.
Yes.
This is our lesson out there. Can we take one quick last one so we don't keep Remo forever?
So, if you don't mind talking a little bit of politics, Subha Jyoti Banerjee has asked, one of the best teams this season. Would like to ask legend Remo that didn't he take a plunge in politics with AAP? What was the rationale behind his decision?
No, I didn't join politics with AAP.
But they used your name.
In that year, the Election Commission of India in Delhi asked me to be their brand ambassador, because there was a big fall in the voting of the 18s to 21 year old. In that age group, people were not voting anymore. The youth were not voting anymore. So the Election Commission asked me to be their brand ambassador. So that's what I was, and I went around I did more than what they asked me to do. They just asked me to pose on their billboards and stuff. But I wrote a song and I went around Goa, speaking at some meetings. Those meetings, some of those meetings were also attended by Kiran Bedi, who I think at that time or a little bit later, I think she joined AAP or something like that. I don't remember. But I never joined AAP. I never stood for elections for AAP or anything of that sort. No, I was the brand ambassador.
Banerjee Bahu, let's just correct that. He was trying to promote the art of electioneering and going and casting a vote, not supporting any party or
and
any party.
And I must proudly say that year saw the highest number of voters in the age group of 18 to 25 in many years. And then soon after that, the youth voted another set of politicians to power, and they were all very excited. And what did the politicians do? They sold themselves to the previous party the very next day. So this youth swore they would never vote again, and I swore I would never ask them to vote again. Because the scene had changed so badly. This selling yourself scene had come to stay in India.
And that brings us to the fact that you didn't swear on the album or on the song. Let's be very clear about that. Yeah. The swearing ends here, as far as we're concerned.
No, I did not.
I apologize for the murky start with the technology from our end, but thank you so much for being here.
Not at all.
Huge joy for all of us, and we just want to promote the fact that the book is out. It's the autobiography of Remo Fernandes, and I just want to tell you, I'm sure fans will want to read it, but I think you need to read this book more than just being a Remo fan, because it just talks about a time from way back when India was a different India and Goa was a different Goa to where it is now. And no judgment or commentary on it. Just read the book and see what you get out of it. And of course, there's the story of Remo, this young guy who loved Billy the Kid. Who, by the way, as we end the show, do you think it was a fair end to Billy the Kid when Pat Garrett shot him, slaughtered him basically without a gun in the courtyard of the house? So it was recorded. The house where he was hiding, Billy gets slaughtered by Pat Garrett.
Frankly, like I told you, I know Billy the Kid as portrayed in those comic books of my youth much more than the real Billy the Kid. It was only years and years later that I came to know that he was a real character, that he had another name, which was Will Boney. I didn't know, much about that, and I'm the wrong person to ask, Cyrus. I'm sorry. I don't know.
I just feel
bad. The real Billy the Kid, I don't know. I just know.
He didn't have a chance.
Know this cowboy who used to always dress in black and who used to fight all the bad guys. In fact, he was never the bad guy in those comics. It was a childish thing.
Or it's more like modern day India. There is no bad guy.
I don't know whether do you know those comics? Do you know when Billy the Kid was portrayed?
No. I've read all the cowboy western comics and all that were available. Yeah. He was portrayed as a hero completely, 100%. Anyway.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it was a sad end. Some other time we can discuss it. But as we say bye to Remo, Silvery, you're going to go and listen to the song from Aflatun again. And I want you to make sure that you record
on repeat.
You record that the voice using the strange language is not his. Let's be very clear about that. It's the autobiography of Remo Fernandes. Go and buy it. And we'll see you, hopefully, Remo. Anytime you're welcome on this podcast. If you're just angry, frustrated, and unhappy, then this is the place to be, because that's all we do.
It was lovely, Cyrus. I can't thank you enough. You and Antariksh, Silvery. It was wonderful talking to you again after years. I was really looking forward.
Pleasure. My pleasure, sir. Love and respect.
Okay, catch us on any of the podcasting apps. Please, we beg you, we need you. Send us your questions on Twitter on Cyrus Says In. Or you can email us, even if you're not female, on whatcyrussays@gmail.com.
Eventually, you'll see the end of your childhood.
Get accustomed to womanhood.
Enjoy the experience of sisterhood.
Might get to wifehood.
Or not. Choose motherhood.
Or not. You'll learn to define your personhood.
Earn a livelihood.
Change the neighborhood.
And get rid of the falsehood that life post-academia is easy.
So join me, Natasha.
And me, Ayushi.
On a journey from station starting point.
To station, what now?
Next station, Pudil Station, and hopefully Agla Station, adulthood.
Fresh episodes out every Thursday.
Do you wonder why China does the things that it does? Or want to know how we could improve online privacy? Or perhaps you're thinking about how we can kickstart India's economy. If you'd like to search for the answers to such questions, check out All Things Policy, a daily public policy podcast that covers everything from employment figures to aircraft carriers. Tune in from Monday to Friday for new episodes and fresh takes.